If we need to practice to just make contact with other humans, maybe there's a few things we need to practice in order to become aware of God and what He's trying to say to us. And what we found out is that when you're really making contact with other people, you get into a mutual mind state in which you can't really tell for sure if it's you thinking and feeling or them thinking and feeling. A simple example is if I smile at you and you start smiling back at me and I start smiling, I will probably say, you're making me smile, and you'd probably say to me, no, you're making me smile, because us is making us smile in reality. And suppose God also uses mutual mind states, so we can't tell if it's Him or me or us that's thinking something and feeling something. I mean, you probably even listen to worship leaders trying to figure out whether this song came from them or from God, right? Or maybe it was us. And so the Immanuel process is how we train our minds to be aware, that God might be with us, and what effect that has if, He's actually like active when He's with us instead of just being like an idea that floats out in space out there someplace.
Part of the issue gets to be, if you look at a baby, when a baby's born, they will smile, they will grin at anybody. They will be glad to be with you if you just are at all happy. Over time, they learn it is not safe to smile. It is not safe to be glad to be with people. It is not safe to be joyful, and you get hurt over time and you start to shut down and you close in and you protect yourself. When the rubber meets the road, when those kind of experiences from my past invade my present, I'm not at all glad to be with you. So part of the reason that we need the training is we haven't learned a lot of the relationship skills to begin with. Nobody taught us. Or we've been hurt and we've been damaged, and there's places in our heart, in our life, that block that flow. And I don't think the church has done a really, really good job at teaching the practical relational skills, or teaching us how to get past the places we're stuck, to really be able to live in joy.
Try to start with feeling appreciation, getting your relational circuits on, and connecting with Jesus in a positive place. And then from that positive place of safety and connection with Jesus, then you talk to Him about, should we go work on traumatic stuff? If so, what? And Jesus, you lead the process. So that at least as far as I'm aware, that's not a part of any other model. You say, okay, well, let's go find the bad stuff, and then we'll ask Jesus to help us heal, which is good. But the idea of, let's actually start with relational connection, joy, perceiving Jesus' presence, being with Him, and then if He leads, if He confirms that that's what we want to do, we go work on trauma. While we're doing that, we're constantly connecting with Jesus, which is actually, if you're connected to Jesus in the right way, you can be having joy even while you're doing painful work, which most people don't get that. That's a whole other chapter about how that works, but it's true. And then when we're done, we very deliberately go back to being grateful, feeling appreciation, connecting with Jesus. So you start with safe, joyful connection with Jesus. You try to stay connected with Jesus even while you're doing the painful work, and you end back with safe, joy connection with Jesus. So even in the healing trauma process, we've actually integrated the whole joy connection thing in a new way that, to me, at least I'm not aware of any other models that do that. So that's part of the thing, is we've even integrated that piece into the trauma healing part.
Well, there's usually two camps. There are those who think they're okay and they don't need anything. And there are those who know they're not okay and desperately want help. And the group, the group that's hardest to help are those who think they're okay. Now, the people around them know that they're not okay. They'll know they're a little crispy, or they're hard to interact with or be relational with. But when these folks who are in their own shoes think that they're okay.
So what we're talking about here is, in the renewing of the mind, it's really both halves. And the right half really is going to be renewed by experiences. And the left half is what makes sense out of it, what puts it to words, what gives understanding, and helps to actually expand and elaborate the meaning of what's happened over there in the right brain. So if you really want to have the fullest flower of your humanity, both sides have to be working synchronized together, working in proper coordination, proper rhythm, and that's actually what happens. So you have to have it's not a right or left brain, it's both. It's both.
It was slow, it was gradual, but I started to learn skills. I started to learn how to quiet, which was a skill that I did not have at all. So I just kept going and going and going, and to-do lists, and you know, I would sit down, but I wouldn't rest. There was no stopping my brain. It just would go and go and go. And so quiet, now I can sit and actually feel a little restored, and like take a deep breath and feel like I've taken a deep breath instead of, okay, let's move on. You know, that's how I used to feel. And so that's just one example with one of the skills, but like I said, I pretty much had none of them. I had no ability to return to joy from fear, so whenever I got afraid, it just controlled me, and my main goal was to get unafraid as quickly as possible and avoid anything that would make me afraid, which relationships, people, life makes you afraid. So if you're trying to avoid fear, then you're avoiding life. And so again, as I started to learn how to not run from those fears, but face them and work through them, it just opened up a whole new realm of life to me. And same with depression, which is really hopeless despair, that you're stuck in hopelessness and you don't know how to return to joy from that. And that was, again, something that I had a lot of struggle with.
I was really small, and it was very horrific. It was very hard. I didn't have to see a lot of it. And God came, and he actually picked, well, first she said, "Where's God?" And I'm like, "Well, he's over on the other side of the room." And she said, "Well, will you let him go over to the little girl?" And the little girl let him come over. And I'll never forget the picture that he picked her up and held her. And it totally took the horrific thing and made him big, and the horrific thing, it's not there anymore. It's not. And I don't remember what lie that I learned about. Some lie probably came out about it, and then we just renounced it.
One of the things that I've said many, many times is I'm personally thankful now that my addiction was to something so abhorrent to me. Because being in ministry, if my addiction would have been to workaholism, I would have just been rewarded. I'd have been rewarded with larger churches, larger paychecks, and more adoration, and would probably still be in my mess.
Problem-centered means that you go dig up all the junk and you look at everything and you got a really big shovel and you keep digging, 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 because you never quite get to the bottom of all the mess. So if you are problem-centered, and I've worked in churches and recovery for a long period of time, and I've run into people that are just, their shovel gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're digging and digging and digging, and they are never satisfied because they're always thinking, I'm not perfect yet. That is not healthy for maturity, for growth, or for any kind of recovery. What I'm talking about with Thrive, or the Thriving Program, is something that is solution-centered. Instead of trying to figure out where I'm broken, what if I could actually learn the skills that would help me thrive? What if I could actually learn the skills that would grow my relationships? And what if I could learn the skills that would help me become the person God has designed and intended me to be all along? That makes the focus on me learning and training and practicing new skills, instead of being negative focused, which is trying to get rid of the junk. If you are solution-centered, if you understand how the brain works, if you understand how God has wired us, then why not equip us with the tools and skills that help us function the way God's designed us to? And along the way, if we discover there's problems, well, then we learn how to deal with it. But our focus is always on the solution. It's not on the problem. And that's one of the things that makes us very different than any other kind of recovery program.